So originally I wasn't gonna talk about this since it has already been discussed to death, but then I thought it might be a good opportunity to teach you guys about how the Unreal monetization works and how does it compare it to Unity and its new policy. So to understand how these two compare, we first need to understand how do these Unity changes actually work and what do they change, because there is a lot of misconception floating around on the internet. So basically the way it used to work in Unity is Unity had a free version of their engine that anyone could download and use and make games inside of. At the same time, Unity also had different versions which were locked behind a paywall and often offered things like newer functions inside the engine, as well as some licensing stuff, but that's not really terribly important for this. However, with these changes, it will basically make it to where if your game is successful, you will have to potentially pay large sums of money to Unity. Now, to be fair, it does seem that in order for you to have to pay royalties, your game must make at least $200,000 in the last 12 months and have over 200,000 installs in its lifetime. Basically, it means if you release a game, the first year you get over 200,000 downloads, but it's free, so you are not making any money, and then the next year you add some kind of monetization and suddenly you are making money, and then in the next year you don't have any new downloads, but you make over $200,000, that's gonna make you eligible to where you have to pay those royalties. Overall, this means that unless your game is already successful, you don't have to really worry about paying money to Unity, since making over $200,000 for most of indie developers, that's like a dream come true, and it doesn't happen very often. So where is the problem, you might ask? Well, the problem is that once you pass that threshold and now have to pay royalties, these royalties are actually kind of insane when you think about it. And I think the best way to illustrate that is to talk about Unreal monetization and how it compares. So how does the Unreal monetization side actually work? Well, it's actually really simple. You can download and use Unreal right now completely for free. Unlike Unity, there are no paywall versions of the engine. You simply download the version of the engine you want and use it. There is also a guarantee in the EULA that basically once you publish a game in a specific version of the engine, they can't work it back and they can't retroactively change it. That means once you published it in a specific version, the licensing and all the legal stuff inside that version is gonna be carried on forever for that game. So how does Epic make money, you might ask? Well, that comes through royalties as well. However, unlike the Unity royalties, they are not paid per install. Instead, you pay a percentage of the money you make from your game, 5% to be exact. So for example, if you make $100, you have to give Epic $5. Well, sort of. You see, it used to be that if your game made $3,000 or more, you had to pay those 5%. If you made less than that, you didn't have to pay anything. However, that recently changed for the better, luckily, unlike Unity, and now instead of $3,000 per quarter, it's $1 million per year. On top of that, you don't start paying royalties until you reach the threshold, meaning that your game can make $1 million and you don't have to pay Epic a single cent for using Unreal. I think this tweet explains it fairly well. If you generate $1,001,001 in a year, you will only need to pay 5% of that $1 because that's above the threshold. This of course will then continue on, so if you then make more past that initial 1 million, you will need to keep paying that 5%. So, which one is actually better? Well, some people have pointed out that 5% from a large enough sum of money could potentially cost you more than paying few cents per install. And that is definitely true to an extent at least. While it might be true that if your Unreal game made millions of dollars, you could end up paying more overall than with Unity, I think you should consider the following. Unreal only makes money if you make money. In other words, if you stop making money from your game, let's say the initial hype behind it dies down or something, you then don't have to pay Epic anything even if people keep downloading your game. Of course, assuming it's free, since otherwise you would be making money. On the other hand, with Unity and these new changes, if you have a good successful release and you meet these standards, you will from there on have to pay on per install basis. I will note that since one of these thresholds is to make over 200k in the last 12 months, it does mean that if your game slows down and goes below it, you will no longer be required to pay anything. However, in my opinion, there are still many dangers with this kind of system, such as people who download games on multiple devices, reinstalls, hate installs, demos, bundles, and giveaways, just to name a few. It is also worth noting that this isn't something new. If you followed Unity, you might have noticed their progressively bigger and bigger focus on monetization, up to a point where even CEO of Unity called people idiots for not focusing more on monetization of their games. So does this mean the end of Unity? Well, no. But it might very well be the beginning of the end of Unity, at least as we know it. Since I do believe, and this is just my personal opinion, this is simply just a start of them trying to further push heavier and heavier monetizations, We already see many people leaving Unity for Unreal and other engines, which in turn might cause Unity to push even harder on making money from those people who are left. But hey, if you do feel like swapping from Unity to Unreal, you can always check out my channel. I have a bunch of guides and tutorials for different game systems and mechanics in Unreal that can help get you up to speed and get you to make games in no time at all. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, leave a like and sub if you feel like it, and see you in the next one. Bye!